Inside the tomb, our main character, named Seo Ju-hyun, was in a helpless situation, attacked by a large snake. His eyes burned with rage and the desire to kill the man who put him in this situation. He was annoyed that he was going to die in the worst way. In his opinion, it all started 15 years ago in 2025 when tombs appeared all over the world. As they appeared, they caused large earthquakes. Within these tombs were things known as relics. These relics were what caused the world to change, granting various powers to its users. Because of that, stories of how people's lives changed after acquiring them spread throughout the world. People began dedicating their lives to searching for them. Ju-hyun started his journey a little longer. He came across an incredible relic, the Archaeist's relic. It was a relic that gave him an extensive amount of knowledge about tombs and other important information regarding relics. He was happy, thinking he could live a better life. However, new laws took over the world. Those who collected numerous relics started to monopolize them, creating a society and establishing a law that would limit their usage. The only option left was to work for those powerful people. Due to Ju-hyun's exceptional skills, he was recognized by a large corporation named TKBM. The CEO of the corporation was named Kwon Tae-jun. He often had to get his hands dirty, engaging in smuggling, theft, and spying, but his most frequent job was being a tomb raider. The tomb raiding team he led produced massive results. Years later, CEO Kwon became the strongest relic user in the world. The more the CEO grew in status, the more he was despised by others. However, he did not have much choice because this is one of the ways to survive in the new crazy world. However, the new mission was a trap prepared by CEO Kwon. He sent Ju-hyun and the team on an impossible and deadly mission. Since the skills they possessed were incredible, he felt threatened. In the present, Ju-hyun was trying in every possible way to fight off the snake, shouting and threatening until the very last moment. It was coming to kill him, but it was stopped by a mysterious voice from nowhere, which asked Ju-hyun to shut up. Ju-hyun asked who it was, to which the mysterious voice expressed surprise at his ability to hear it. Ju-hyun asked to get rid of the snake and let him leave. The voice asked if he truly believes that he could survive with a torn body like that, expressing shame even with the exponential talent he couldn't indulge in. He felt regret and anger in his last breath. The voice felt disappointed seeing talent die off like that and gave him a chance to claim throne of the king. He wondered what kind of relic that bird could be. As he was wondering, he noticed his leg, which was fully intact. He was confused. Then he realized that he was in the police station. Officer asked for his identity. He wondered if it was that crow's doing and questioned if it was a dream or hallucination. The officer got mad because Ju-hyun was ignoring him. Then he wondered what year it was. He noticed that it was January 1st, 2025. He noticed the kind and remembered that there was a kid who got drunk and started a fight. He couldn't believe that he had gone back 15 years. He recalled the voice telling him about claiming the throne of the king. He realized that the world is still unaware of relics, and this is before God-rank relics appeared. He realized that all of his previous knowledge and memories are still intact, and he can start collecting relics earlier than everyone. He was excited to collect all the relics. A woman was yelling at him for spacing out and ignoring her. She demanded a settlement fee, or he would end up in jail. He remembered the kid who started the fight and had to beg to reduce his settlement fees. The woman was angry and lifted a hand to slap him, but he quickly grabbed her hand. He was surprised to see his reflexes were still intact. Ju-hyun stood up and began to tell the woman that her son got into the fight himself, and the situation that had developed now was absolutely stupid. Her son charged at him, but he swiftly dodged it and grabbed his hand, knocking him down on the floor. Police approached to stop the fight. Ju-hyun said that he would not be able to pay any compensation, so if they wanted to put him in jail, he would not mind. The woman was very surprised and angrily said that by this act, he had made a big mistake. He didn't care about a criminal record because when tombs and relics appear, the world will be thrown into lawless chaos. He noticed words floating in front of him. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. More words appeared describing him. He realized that it must be relics doing. More windows appeared showcasing his tomb raider skills. He was mad at the relic for treating him like a game character. A new quest appeared, stating to activate 4 hidden talents to become a tomb raider. A policeman approached, asking why he was making noise. He realized that he was the only one who could see those windows. The one skill he discovered turned out to be the same as before that he had from the relics. He realized that if he could regain all his previous skills, then he wouldn't have to go after those relics again. Then he felt suspicious because relics don't usually like helping humans. A man approached, calling him, and got Ju-hyun out of jail, assuring him that he would take care of the incident. Ju-hyun expressed his gratitude. The man was Detective Jeon-woo Kim, who had taken care of Ju-hyun when he was an orphan and always treated him like a little brother. Ju-hyun asked Detective Kim if there were any cases related to superpowers or something similar. He joked that sometimes his wife used superpowers on him. He concluded that tombs hadn't caused any big issues, and relic users hadn't appeared yet. As Ju-hyun headed home, he realized that in the beginning, most of the good relics appeared in Europe and America, but he didn't have money for flights. While pondering this, some people approached him, asking why he didn't come for work. He recognized him as the thug named Kyung-tae Park. He and his older sister run a small gallery. When he was in high school, he worked for them to earn money. They hadn't left him and beat him, leading him to slave for them until his mid-20s. As he was wondering, one of them approached. Ju-hyun punched him, knocking him to the ground, surprising them. He declared that he was done working for them and demanded payment and severance packages. They laughed at him. Suddenly, the leader charged at him, but Ju-hyun countered it, landing a punch on his face and smashing his head on his knee. Others were shocked and charged at him, but he quickly countered, knocking them to the ground. The leader took out a knife to kill him, but Ju-hyun noticed that the knife he was holding was a relic. Most relics are found in tombs, but some hide in human society. The leader charged at him with a knife, but he quickly dodged the attack, grabbing the leader's hand and turning the situation against him. Ju-hyun snatched the knife and swiftly utilized relic powers, enabling him to see through his opponent's organs and bones. As two more men approached, he slashed them with incredible speed, warning them to hand over his money or face the consequences. In a Sian gallery, Park's older sister receives a call from him. He explains the situation, and his sister gets mad at him. He explained that Ju-hyun was fine until yesterday, but now he is a completely different person. She asks how much he took from them, and he tells her that he took all the money they had and a Buddha statue. She becomes furious and orders him to find it no matter what. Ju-hyun went to the antique art center, where the shop owner told him that the Buddha statue was not worth much and was just a decoration piece. He wondered why Park was acting like it was worth millions and grew suspicious about the statue. Suddenly, a window appeared, stating he acquired a new skill. His suspicion was confirmed, and there was something in the statue. He took out his knife and slashed it into pieces, revealing a bottle filled with liquid. He realized it was a drug and remembered they had hundreds of artworks. He speculated if all the artworks contained drugs and called Detective Kim to report about drug trafficking. Inside the gallery, Park's sister asked him about the Buddha statue, but then she noticed handcuffs on him. Detective Kim revealed himself and told her that they were busted. She denied the accusations. He showed her the drug that Ju-hyun found and mentioned that they even knew about their warehouse. She was shocked, but then she thought they wouldn't know the passcode to enter. She denied the accusations again, stating they couldn't force open the warehouse without a warrant. Detective Kim received a call confirming they had found hundreds of artworks, all containing drugs. She was furious, asking how they got to the warehouse. Ju-hyun, with his years of experience, had a good memory and remembered all the passcodes from his time working. As the police were escorting Park's sister, Ju-hyun wanted to talk to her and teased her, mentioning they should have switched the security code every 6 months. Heading home, Detective Kim told him he would receive $100,000 for the report and his assistance. As Ju-hyun walked home, he was shocked to find his apartment buried under a large tomb created by a relic. People near the incident were confused and even the military had arrived. Swiftly sneaking out through the back, Ju-hyun noticed the panic around him. Recalling that his roommate Dong-hyun Kim had called him while he was at work, saying their house had disappeared, he realized someone had already cleared the tomb. Searching for the person who cleared the tomb, Ju-hyun suddenly recognized Dong-hyun's voice arguing with a soldier. The soldier shouted at Dong-hyun to follow instructions, and in response, Ju-hyun kicked him for pulling a gun. Ju-hyun questioned what was happening, and the military officer apologized to him. Wondering why there were so many soldiers and sensing something was amiss, Ju-hyun asked the soldiers if they were trying to enter the tomb. The soldier responded that it was classified. Ju-hyun, realizing the Korean military knew about relics early on, he asked for the information, even threatening to report the soldier for threatening civilians. He insisted on getting the details about what happened. The soldier explained to Juhyun that they were planning to blast open the tomb to explore its contents, unaware that tombs couldn't be opened that way. He assured Juhyun that they had foreign experts, ensuring no danger to civilians. Juhyun instructed his roommate not to move. Meanwhile, CIA agent Linda Walker spoke on the phone, confirming if the Koreans were still unaware of the tombs. The person on the phone mentioned they didn't know about the tombs yet and advised against asking such questions. They inquired about the mission's progress, and Linda replied that the explosives would go off soon, assuring that everything would go as planned to investigate the tomb and retrieve the relic. The call ended. A man named Kiyoshi Abe greeted Linda Walker, as they discussed their respective interests and relics. Remarked that being neighboring countries made his presence natural, playfully mocking the U.S.'s seriousness about relic recovery. Linda explained that the U.S. pursued relics for academic purposes. Kiyoshi questioned if the U.S. would share relics for academic reasons, to which Linda responded negatively. Kiyoshi asserted that they were all in this together, and the relics would belong to them. Listening to their conversation, Juhyun wondered why they were there. Tombs had appeared worldwide, and only a few countries, including America and Japan, were aware of the relics. These countries conducted secret investigations and even stole relics found in other nations. Juhyun vowed not to let them take the relic from him. He questioned why they were just standing around, realizing neither of them were experts. Approaching the tomb, Juhyun noticed tomb glyphs on the ground. Relics used these writings both inside and outside tombs to explain everything about themselves. If one could read these glyphs, they could learn about the tomb's entrance and traps. Juhyun began deciphering the writings and discovered the entrance. A notification popped up, indicating he unlocked a new skill called linguistic, allowing him to understand every language. Additionally, he earned the title of expert cryptographer. Reaching the tomb entrance, he struck the stone block. The stone glowed, and a message popped up, warning of an intense aura approaching. A light beam shot from the ground, illuminating the city. Linda and Kiyoshi recognized the light emanating from the tomb entrance, and hurriedly ran toward it. Kiyoshi instructed a soldier to guard the entrance and prevent civilians from entering. Reaching the entrance, they observed the beam of light and Linda tossed the rock down to gauge the hole's depth. Kiyoshi bravely jumped in. On the other side, Juhyun, hearing the approaching footsteps, decided to activate a tomb trap. At the bottom of the tomb, Kiyoshi and Linda heard an approaching sound that grew louder. Suddenly, they faced a massive wave of water heading their way. They were caught in the water, and Juhyun discovered a lake inside the tomb. He took out a dagger, he threw it into the lake. A large snake emerged, inquiring about the dropped item. It presented a gold knife and a silver knife, asking which one belonged to Juhyun. The relic in this tomb, called the gold and silver axes, was based on the famous folktale, Mercury and the Woodcutter from Aesop's fables. This story was well known in other countries also, making it easier for foreigners to navigate the trial. Juhyun replied that neither knife was his. The snake then revealed his real knife and asked if it belonged to Juhyun. If he admitted that the knife was his, he risked losing not only his own weapon but also the gold and silver axes. So, Juhyun proposed to inspect the knife first to determine its authenticity. The snake agreed, and Juhyun took the knife, swiftly cutting through the snake's mouth. In pain, the snake questioned Juhyun's actions, asking why he would do this when he was close to completing the trial. Juhyun explained that he never trusted relics, fearing that even if he passed the test, there was no guarantee the relic would return his knife. He expressed his distrust in all relics, questioning what would happen if the knife turned him into a psychopathic murderer. The snake marveled at Juhyun's insight, revealing that the original owner of the gold and silver axes had indeed turned into a mass murderer. The relics had caused countless lives to be lost. Juhyun accused the snake of trying to give him a cursed knife despite the trial being about honesty. Jumping on the snake, Juhyun began stabbing it. The snake questioned if Juhyun believed that by doing this, he could earn the right to use the relic. After successfully navigating the tomb and passing the relic trial, individuals are rewarded with a relic that grants various abilities. However, the relationship between the user and the relic is one of deep hatred, as relics are designed to bring harm to humans. Spending time with a relic leads to the user eventually suffering from sickness. Healing relics grant immense power and authority, leading to Juhyun's exploitation by Seo Kwan. Juhyun asserted to the snake that he had no need for a mutual relationship with relics and challenged the snake to endure the situation. He vowed to assert dominance and forced the relic into submission. It was resisting, but Ju Hian kept using dominance. To wield a relic, one needs to undergo a talent trial, as relics tend to stray away otherwise. There are 3 types of talent trials: affinity, focusing on cooperation and building healthy relationships with relics; dominance, testing the ability to coerce and force relics to obey; and synergy, where the owner and relic naturally form a bond. Most people prefer to increase affinity, as it is the easiest and allows owners to fully benefit from the relic. However, becoming too friendly with the relic causes it to release poison, making the owner sick. Ju Hian commanded the relic to surrender, threatening to break it into pieces if it refused. The relic finally surrendered, granting him an axe relic. With this success, he acquired a new skill called tomb excavation and earned the title of the relic abuser. At that moment, Linda and Kiyoshi approached the lake. Kiyoshi took out a relic and threw it into the lake. Ju Hian considered killing them, but a message appeared, indicating that he could only use a knife 54 times. He interpreted this as the crow relic advising him to think carefully. Kiyoshi grew frustrated as nothing happened after throwing the relic. He mentioned that a prophecy had told him to drop the relic to activate it. Linda, overhearing this, confirmed her suspicion about Japan possessing a prophecy relic. Kiyoshi pointed out the possibility that someone had already taken the relic. Confirming his doubt, Linda noticed footprints on the ground. Ju Hian ordered the relic to close the tomb and escape through a manhole. Upon returning to his apartment, everything had returned to normal. Kiyoshi also escaped the tomb and received a call warning him about another prophecy predicting the appearance of a Korean player. They cautioned him about the mysterious person. In the gallery, Park's underlings were furious and didn't know what to do since they were out of money. One of them, named Sungwoo, planned to take revenge on Ju Hian, and the rest agreed. As they were plotting, Ju Hian suddenly called them. They were shocked when he picked up the phone and began shouting at them for betraying their organization. Ju Hian told Sungwoo to shut up. He then instructed them to attend the upcoming auction at Midas in Las Vegas on his behalf. Midas was where the world's largest auction house was located. All of the greatest treasures could be found there. Ju Hian knew Seo Kwan often attended the auction and acquired powerful relics around this time. He told them to look out for one person in particular, Jack Kamen, also known as JK. He often used this fake name. If they found him, they were to gather any information they could. Sungwoo shouted again, asking how they could possibly attend such a high-profile auction. In the past, Park's connections had gotten them access, but those were gone now. Ju Hian coldly replied that it was their job to figure it out. However, he assured them that he would pay them based on the quality of information they provided. They initially refused to do the work, but Ju Hian threatened to beat them until they agreed. After some consideration, they reluctantly accepted the task to go to Vegas. In a convenience store, Ju Hian encountered Kiyoshi Abe, who suddenly appeared and began shouting at him. Recognizing him, Ju Hian thought that if Kiyoshi was here, a tomb might appear nearby. Ju Hian started shouting back in Japanese. He apologized thinking he is Japanese. Ju Hian thought his linguistic skill is pretty useful. Then Ju Hian speak in Korean. Kiyoshi was even angrier for messing with him, but then Ju noticed a relic and thought he didn't know how to hide a relic's aura. Wanting to take a closer look at the relics, Ju Hian shook his can. As Kiyoshi approached, he accidentally splashed the can on his face, making him even angrier. Ju Hian apologized, claiming it was an accident. In that moment he quickly put his hands in his pocket, and realized that it was a bracelet and a small case relic. But didn't steal the relics thinking it would be obvious. While they were talking, suddenly an earthquake occurred, causing chaos. Ju Hian's suspicion was right. Kiyoshi Abe was waiting for the tomb to appear. Kiyoshi received a call informing him that they received a prophecy stating the Korean who took the axe relics was near him. He quickly realized it was Ju Hian who had taken the axe relics. Ju Hian searched for a gate to open, but Kiyoshi approached from behind, pointing a gun at him. Just then, Ju Hian received a warning about intense energy at his location. A powerful energy emerged below ground, blocking the sight. Ju Hian, along with other civilians, fell into a tomb. He noticed broken blades scattered around and remembered entering this tomb before. It was the tomb of a Japanese relic called Muramasa. The Muramasa family in medieval Japan was renowned for their swordsmiths, but a conflict with the Tokugawa shogunate led to the family's downfall. The shogun ordered all Muramasa blades destroyed, and rumors spread that they were cursed. The relic's bloodthirst aura began to affect Ju Hian. Kiyoshi Abe appeared behind him, but Juhien, ignoring him, provoked him to shoot. Kiyoshi attempted to shoot his leg, but his gun exploded in his hands. Juhien informed him that modern weapons don't work inside tombs. He grabbed Kiyoshi's jacket and threw him into the pit, where strange spirits started emerging and grabbing him. As Juhien left him, Kiyoshi sought help from civilians, but no one seemed to understand what he was talking about. One person stepped forward, seeming to know Japanese, but others warned him to be cautious due to the gun. He showed his card, indicating he was a member of the Japanese excavation team, and assured them he was trained to handle such situations. Juhien skillfully stole relics from Kiyoshi Abe's pocket when he grabbed him. It was a rope bracelet and rice cake relic. This act unlocks a new skill for Juhien, Pity Pickpocket. With this skill, he now possesses all 4 required skills, marking his completion as a full-fledged tomb raider. He was excited for the reward. While searching for a relic, he hears people screaming and investigates. In the pit, he discovers a girl holding a relic that has possessed her. The trap's goal is to eliminate everyone in it, and the danger escalates with the number of people present. Juhien inquires about who led them into this trap, and they said the Japanese guy. He jumps into the pit. The possessed girl charges at him, but Juhien quickly employs his rope bracelet, ordering it to restrain her. The bracelet transforms into a rope, immobilizing her. Taking out a knife, it commands Juhien to kill everyone. A window appears, detailing the characteristics of the relic. Recognizing it as a mediocre relic with a massive ego, Juhien casually throws the knife aside, deciding to seek the main boss relic. The girl regains her senses, and Juhien calls back his rope bracelet. Kiyoshi Abe was searching for a Muzumura blade, planning to kill Juhien afterward. However, he struggled to locate the Muzumura relic. Suddenly, the people he had betrayed appeared, grabbing and beating him. Juhien taunted him for failing to find the Muzumura even with a head start. Ordering his axe relic to locate Muzumura, Juhien discovered its broken state. Muzumura informed him that to unlock its true power, he needed the blood of 10 sacrifices. Failing to fulfill this requirement would trap him in a tomb forever. Juhien used domination methods to control its power, facing resistance and intense energy. Despite the struggle, Juhien managed to control it and cleared the tomb. He then assisted people in safely exiting the tomb. Among the crowd, Kiyoshi Abe sneaked through, but Juhien noticed him. Kiyoshi requested to live, offering to recommend Juhien to his government, and the potential to earn up to $100,000. He also revealed they possessed a future guide relic. Juhien agreed but instructed him to come up last. As they climbed the rope, Juhien asked about the company backing the Japanese excavation team, learning it was the famous TKBM company. At that moment, Juhien kicked his face, sending Kiyoshi Abe back into the tomb. Kiyoshi fell, injuring his legs, witnessing Juhien climb to the top and leaving him alone as the tomb collapsed. Stones fell, and Kiyoshi, now alone and desperate, shouted and begged for his life. After the battle, Juhien inspected the wound he received from using domination. Ignoring a trial and forcefully dominating a relic would cause damage, and the stronger the relic, the stronger the resistance. A window popped up, offering him a reward and a choice between the path of domination and the path of affinity. He chose domination and received a consumable reward. Initially hesitant, he decided to eat it and felt a change. Upon realization, he noticed all his wounds were gone. Another window appeared, stating that he now had tolerance to the side effects of relics. Following the incident, news spread about the tomb causing a large earthquake. A mysterious place appeared and someone from the Japanese excavation team tried to harm civilians. During a Japanese excavation board meeting, everyone criticized the chief of the excavation team for the huge scandal and the increased awareness of relics and tombs among the public. He explained that an unexpected Korean individual had caused the mess and assured them that they would track him with future relic. Despite the scandal, they gave him a second chance to eliminate the Korean. While Juhien contemplated his skills, his phone rang. It was Sungwoo, who informed him that they had checked all the attendees for the auction, finding 3 people with the name JK. Upon hearing this, Juhien decided to go there by himself. Suddenly, a window appeared, warning him that his future was being read by an S-rank relic. He informed Sungwoo that he would be a little late. Instead of creating a tomb, the future relic chose its owner directly. Wherever she went, it followed her everywhere, persistently returning even after being burned or thrown away. Initially terrified, Sasaki became the subject of interest for the Japanese government, who sought her assistance for the Japanese excavation team. She agreed, dedicating herself to reading future relics and helping them collect numerous relics. However, the future relic eventually found a more competent owner, leading to Sasaki's death. While watching TV, Sasaki was approached by a man who informed her that it was time to read the future relic. She sat down, opened the book, and suddenly screamed, predicting her own death at the hands of the Korean guy. Terrified, she informed them about the prophecy, and a lady reassured her that they had a future relic to predict his next move. Ju Hyun arrived in Japan to deal with the future relic, sitting in a room and enjoying sushi while waiting for them to come. He provocatively wrote repetitive words. Suddenly, he heard a voice from outside where 3 men with guns were waiting patiently. They instructed Sasaki to make eye contact with him to complete the mark and understand his every move. Concerned about her safety, she reluctantly agreed, thinking that the Korean guy wouldn't recognize her face. As she entered, she was astonished by Ju Hyun's appearance, and he recognized her, attempting to draw his blade. Astonished by Ju Hyun's appearance, she asked if he was a celebrity. Ju Hyun felt confused, wondering if she was just playing a role. Sasaki then took out her phone and wrote something, showing it to him. His immediate reaction was that she was dumb. Ju Hyun saw an opportunity to exploit the situation. Ju Hyun asked her if she had come alone, suspecting the presence of the Japanese army with her. Sasaki admitted that, confirming she was accompanied by the Japanese army. Ju Hyun, concerned about the potential danger they posed to her, advised her to escape together. Outside, the men were waiting for Sasaki to come out, but a table burst through the door, and a rope immediately immobilized them. As they left the room, Sasaki doubted it must be another person who's trying to harm her. Ju Hyun assured her they had come far enough. He drew his blade and threatened her, demanding her phone. Ju Hyun smashed her phone so they can't track them. Sasaki was scared and thought he was much scarier than she thought. They went to a nearby restaurant, where Ju Hyun proceeded to bind Sasaki's arms. Puzzled, she inquired about his intentions, questioning whether he planned to kill her. Ju Hyun admitted that he initially intended to kill her, but after observing how stupid she is, he reconsidered and spared her life. Ju Hyun demanded that Sasaki retrieve her future book and transcribe everything she knew. However, she told him that she forgot her book at home. Ju Hyun inspected her right arm and discovered a tattoo, instructing her to touch the tattoo and summon her future guide. She summoned it. Ju Hyun told her to document her knowledge, threatening her life if she refused. Sasaki diligently began writing the events that she saw in the book. As time passed, she was tired of writing, but Ju Hyun encouraged her to continue as much as possible. Curious, she suggested offering her future guide to Ju Hyun. Ju Hyun, aware of the potential consequences of forcefully taking a high-ranking relic, explained the considerable penalties he would suffer from serious damage. 3 Japanese soldiers entered the scene, searching for Ju Hyun. With a sense of urgency, he asked Sasaki how much she had written. Claiming to be nearly finished, he took the book from her and promptly destroyed the future guide with Muramasa. Notification informed him of an increase in his stats and abilities. The soldiers, witnessing the burning guide, were taken aback. The soldiers, unfazed, issued an order to eliminate Ju Hyun. In a strategic move, Ju Hyun tossed the peculiar relic above the soldiers, claiming it was obtained from Kiyoshi and should be returned to them. He took the opportunity and vanished from the scene. As the soldiers examined the relic, an unusual smell emanated from it. Soon, they started fighting over Machi. The relic not only charmed the enemies but also teleported its user instantly to a safe place. He began reading the contents of the book Sasaki had written. Observing that Sasaki had come into contact with the TKBM group supporting the future guide user, Ju Hyun hoped to find information about Seo Kwan within the pages of the book. Ju Hyun discovered information about Kwan in the book. It contained a riddle: in 1 month, head towards the underworld of the place ripe with greed. At that place shall the omen pertaining to the world's greatest calamity begin. Ju Hyun pondered if it had something to do with the Las Vegas underground auction house. This was the same place Sungwoo and his group had visited to gather information about Seo Kwan. The latter part, omen pertaining to the world's greatest calamity, made him consider the future great catastrophe involving the widespread influence of relics globally. However, Ju Hyun remembered the great catastrophe starting later in his memory. The following line in the riddle stated, "The God who understands your greed shall ask for your cooperation." Ju Hian speculated that a god to relic might appear at the auction house. He wondered if Seo Kwan obtained that relic to become a powerful figure in the future. Smiling, Ju Hian planned on acquiring that relic from Seo Kwan at the auction. In the next scene, the Japanese research team committee board discussed Sasaki's condition. Although she had regained consciousness, she was still considerably weak, and the future guide was completely destroyed. A committee member expressed frustration that the soldiers had fought amongst themselves instead of eliminating Ju Hian. Meanwhile, a woman spoke on the phone, informing someone that the future guide was destroyed, and they had also suffered damages. The person on the other end was shocked that one person caused all of this. She asked about seeking revenge, but the person suggested recruiting that man into their team. She expressed concern about this person's willingness to destroy valuable relics and the potential risk to their company. The person on the phone dismissed the worries, stating that there is nothing money can't solve. In Las Vegas, Ju Hian sat in a restaurant, waiting for his minions who eventually arrived. The security guard stopped them, stating that only auction attendees were allowed in the restaurant. Ju Hian assured them that his guests were with him, easing the security concerns. His minions were amazed that he could speak English. Ju Hian inquired about the report, and they handed over the documents. While reviewing the list, Ju Hian spotted a fake profile and immediately recognized it as Seo Kwan's false identity. Realizing that Seo Kwan's presence indicated the potential presence of valuable relics, possibly even god-to relics, Ju Hian delved into the auction catalog to identify any valuable items. However, he couldn't find any particularly valuable relics. Sungwoo expressed shock, questioning Ju Hian's participation in the auction. Ju Hian confirmed it, stating that they were in Las Vegas, the city of gambling, emphasizing that with money, they could achieve anything. He reminded them that their trip to the auction wasn't just about making connections but also about leveraging their resources, including financial ones, to achieve their goals. Ju Hian reached a casino, leaving everyone in disbelief as he continued winning. He took out a voucher and instructed his minions to move to the next casino. As they were leaving, a casino staff member approached and asked to search him for signs of cheating. They found nothing, except a golden knife, and when questioned, Ju Hian explained it was just a souvenir. Unbeknownst to them, the golden knife was actually a golden axe relic, capable of finding wealth and valuables, helping Ju Hian identify machines which will give him jackpots. They withdrew the cash, leaving Sungwoo and the others astonished at the sudden wealth. Sungwoo inquired if Ju Hian was truly going to participate in the auction, and Ju Hian affirmed, aiming to find the best relic before Seo Kwan. Upon reaching another casino, one of his minions alerted Ju Hian that something in the bag was moving. It was a silver axe relic, signaling potential threats to its master. While a golden relic axe has the ability to seek wealth, the silver axe relic has the ability to find enemies that are a threat to its master. They noticed chaos in the casino, with people losing money and fights breaking out. Suddenly, a man attacked them, but Ju Hian swiftly dealt with him. Spotting a blonde girl, Ju Hian recognized her and urgently declared they were leaving. The girl was Irene Hilton, the youngest daughter of the wealthy Hilton Bank family. Those possessing god relics stood above other relic users, earning titles like the God of Wealth, God of Conquest, and God of Fate and more. Irene wielded a frightening relic, earning her the title of the God of Failure. Misfortune surrounded her, some lost all of their money, some companies even went bankrupt. She even caused financial crisis on the globe scale. Irene ran towards Ju Hian, who avoided her due to the misfortune affecting his relics. She grabbed his hand, leading to a warning window about his relics getting damaged. Abruptly yanking her hand away, Ju Hian displayed a strong reaction. Irene apologized, leaving Sungwoo confused why he was acting like that, until one of them identified her as America's wealthiest youngest daughter, Irene Hilton. Irene asked if Ju Hian was the one who won multiple jackpots at the casinos, searching for him everywhere. She inquired how did he accomplish that. But Ju Hian ignored her question, insisting she had the wrong person. As he left, Sungwoo yelled at him for ignoring Irene, and they decided to apologize to her but got affected by her misfortune. After leaving Irene, Ju Hian warned Sungwoo to stay away from her, instructing them to take shelter and protect the money. Upon reaching the auction house, he noticed Yun Si-woo, the right-hand man of Seo Kwan, and then spotted Seo Kwan himself. Ju Hian remembers the suffering he faced from his previous life. Ju Hian vowed to claim all the relics he desired. He then noticed a panic spread among the people, and misfortune began to strike them. Ju Hian assumed Irene must be nearby, and indeed, he noticed her looking for him. Although she found him, Ju Hian turned his back on her. Desperately, Irene asked for his help. As Ju Hian walked away, he accidentally bumped into a glass wall and blamed her for the accident. Irene explained that this was the problem: wherever she went, misfortune followed. She expressed her desire to have luck like Ju Hian's to bring happiness to those around her. Ju Hian, confused, recalled the god of failure causing financial instability across multiple countries and doubted if Irene was putting on an act. Desperately, Irene insisted that Ju Hian help her. Due to her relic's energy, Ju Hian's tolerance was increasing exponentially. He saw this as a great opportunity to boost his tolerance, and considered that her presence at the auction might increase misfortune, causing people to run away to deal with their misfortune. Noticing Yun Siwu informing Quan about a fire at their factory in China, Ju Hian anticipated that Quan might not be aware of Irene's relic and planned to use this opportunity. He promised to help Irene with good luck but emphasized the need for detailed discussions about their trade, asking her to attend the auction with him, which she agreed. As the auction began, Ju Hian observed the hall becoming empty due to attendees dealing with sudden misfortune. But he noticed that CEO Quan hasn't left, despite their factory in China caught on fire. Ju Hian thought there must be something valuable in the auction. Irene questioned why he wasn't buying anything, and he explained that the items he desired would show up later in the auction. He pondered that Irene seemed different from his past life, and seemed genuinely unaware of relics. He speculated that if the relic attached to her without her consent, she must have been a kind-hearted person before the misfortune relic corrupted her personality. Grateful for Ju Hian's help and belief in her, a window popped up stating Irene's relic's aura strength started to become more intense due to the user's mood. As her happiness grew, more misfortune occurred around them, causing critical damage to Ju Hian's relics but rapidly increasing his tolerance. Ju Hian reminded Irene that their trade agreement wasn't finalized, and increasing her luck didn't guarantee an end to misfortune for those around her. As her mood shifted, the relic's effect decreased. Remaining attendees bid senselessly due to the intensified relic aura. He thought he could use this opportunity to eliminate remaining attendees. He assured Irene that he would help increase her luck and find a way to manage her misfortune. Purposely making favorable statements, he kept her in a good mood, causing her relic aura to intensify. Attendees lost their senses, bidding on useless but pricey items. Since everyone blew their money in the first half, Ju Hian was able to secure most of the relics he wanted. But few relics he had to concede to Quan. Due to his domination trait was high. Wondering why the god to relic mentioned in a prophecy hadn't appeared, Ju Hian believed the auction was over. However, the host announced a special item, a mysterious almond sapling tree, Qin Shi's elixir plant. Recognizing it, Ju Hian knew it was a god-tier healing relic. Emperor Qin Shi Huang was a powerful monarch during the Qin dynasty. The elixir of life was first discovered during his era. Many years later, they found the elixir of life in the form of an almond sapling tree. Before Ju Hian died, Quan already possessed the tree, and his body was riddled with side effects of the relic's aura. Because of this, his life was dependent on relics produced by the sapling plant's fruit, a relic that allowed Quan to control Ju Hian in his past life. Ju Hian vowed not to let him take the tree this time. The bidding started at $200,000. They both began bidding to compete with each other, attracting more participants. Quan raised his bid to $10 million. Ju Hian knew he wouldn't be able to win against Quan with money alone. He promised Irene to find solutions for her issue, in exchange, asked her to obtain that item for him. Irene promised Ju Hian that she would secure the item for him. The bidding reached $100 million, and people were going crazy. Irene countered with $150 million, but Quan raised it to $160 million. The intense bidding competition between Quan and Irene continued until the elixir plant was won by Irene Hilton for $500 million. Ju Hian and Irene were sitting in the room. Ju Hian thanked her for retrieving the item for him. She asked how he was going to increase her luck. He told her he didn't have any item to increase her luck, but there was something she had, and it needed to be extracted from her. He asked her if she noticed an item that followed her around everywhere. She didn't recall such a thing. He asked to throw all the items she has. She mentioned she tried throwing things, but they never came back. Ju Hian asked if she had a tattoo that showed up randomly. She confirmed. There are two types of relics, expandable relics and possession relics. The tattoos that appear are possession-type relics. When a bond is formed with a relic, a tattoo appears. Only the master of the relic can use that relic. She shows a picture of her tattoos. He immediately recognized that it's not a normal relic. The relic she had was a parasitic relic type. These relics are rare and forcefully reside in the user's body. Ju Hyun realized that it was not a misfortune relic, but he couldn't understand what type of relic it was and was not able to extract her relic out of her body. Ju Hyun apologized to her and told her that he couldn't extract that thing but assured her that he would come up with a solution. At the reception, they told Ju Hyun that they had received the sapling tree's payment, and he could collect other items after their payment. He tried calling his minions, but they didn't pick up his phone. He asked the receptionist for help if they could let him borrow an item for a while. They were running away with Ju Hyun's money, thinking they were far from his sight. Suddenly, an axe came flying toward them, barely missing its mark. It was Ju Hyun who had thrown the axe. They promptly apologized and begged for their lives. Ju Hyun took out an item from his pocket and activated it. The item was the Code of Law, created by King Hammurabi during ancient times. One of the famous phrases from the law is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. The relic was a defense-type relic that reflected enemies' attacks back onto them. He cast a spell that restricted any type of attack or betrayal from his minions. But he was uncertain if the spell would affect opponents' present or future actions. It did work on them. Ju Hyun warned them that if they tried anything like they did earlier, their bodies would be ripped apart. He explained that it was akin to a slave contract. They believed him, especially since he summoned a stone that disappeared. Ju Hyun told them that the world was going to change forever and reassured them that sticking with him would be benefit to them. He assured them that if they worked diligently, they would even receive a lot of money as compensation. The next day, Ju Hyun called his minions, assigning them the task of taking care and breeding the tree. He informed them that the tree was worth $500 million and emphasized the importance of handling it well. He noticed that they were managing it effectively, and recalled that the previous night, it had emitted an unpleasant odor. This was because the elixir plant disliked users with high domination traits. Ju Hyun received a call, and he immediately recognized the number. It was CEO Kwan's personal phone. Kwan formally introduced himself, and Ju Hyun inquired about the purpose of the call. He expressed his desire to discuss the sapling tree that Ju Hyun had acquired from Irene Hilton. Ju Hyun said that he was busy and ended the call. He was furious. He blamed Yoon Si-woo, stating that if he hadn't stopped him, he would have obtained the tree. He apologized, promising to take full responsibility and do whatever it took to secure the sapling tree. Ju Hyun, sensing the silver axe's reaction, believed someone was keeping an eye on him. To lure this observer, he intentionally changed locations. While sitting in a bar, he noticed Yoon Si-woo alone, emitting the aura of a relic. He was angrily asking for Ju Hyun's exact location. Observing Ju Hyun sitting alone, he approached him and asked if he was Ju Hyun. He ignored him. Yoon Si-woo asked again, but he ignored again, prompting him to get mad. He finally looked at him, causing Yoon Si-woo to fall to the ground. He advised him to be polite when dealing with others. Yoon Si-woo questioned if he remembered their last encounter at Midas. Ju Hyun claimed not to recall seeing him there, frustrating him. Ju Hyun then described him as a loser working for an old geezer, further infuriating him, and a window appeared, indicating he was losing control over relics due to his temper. He remembered that Yoon Si-woo has a huge inferiority complex, mentioned that it's always easy to provoke him. Ju Hyun told him that he would give them a tree if he asked politely. Yoon Si-woo bowed before him, insisting on receiving that tree. However, Ju Hyun laughed and told him he was lying. He took out a relic to attack Ju Hyun, but he swiftly dodged the attack. Then, he grabbed Yoon Si-woo's head and slammed it on the ground. Ju Hyun took his relic and used it on Yoon Si-woo. The relic was Voodoo Priest's zombie powder, temporarily turning him into a mindless zombie. The next day, CEO Kwan saw Yoon Si-woo in prison, arrested for walking around naked in the middle of the city. Kwan ordered his subordinates to recover the relics he had. One of them informed him that Yoon Si-woo was naked, so he didn't have anything. Suspecting that Ju Hyun was behind this, Kwan decided to send his lawyer to deal with the situation. At the Las Vegas International Airport, Ju Hyun was pleased to collect every relic that was needed. In addition, he also acquired zombie powder, foxtail millet, and Mameros glasses from Yoon Si-woo. As they were leaving, an exclusive lawyer from the TKBM company appeared and introduced herself. Firstly, she accused Ju-hyun of stealing relics from Yoon Si-woo and told him that he didn't have to be so defensive about it. She offered him to work for the TKBM company. Ju-hyun rejected, stating it was a slave contract. She promised that they would give him $100 million in advance, and pay him yearly as well. He refused again, saying he didn't want to work for that old geezer. She started to threaten him, saying he and his associates might disappear without a trace. Ju-hyun got mad and took out the zombie elixir. In a trembling voice, she told him that there were so many people around, and he would not want the existence of the relic to be revealed. Ju-hyun asked if she really thinks he cares about it. He threw the relic at her and asked people around to make a video of the shiny powder flying and upload it on the internet. The zombie powder didn't work on her, and Ju-hyun thought she must have high resistance. He told her if she had any relic, she must use it before it is too late. She took out a bottle from which lots of water came out toward Ju-hyun. But he used the Hammurabi stone to deflect her attack on her. She begged not to kill her. He told her it wouldn't kill her, but it would destroy every relic she has. Airport security guards were running towards the cafe after receiving word that a naked woman was harassing people. Kwon knew it was Ju-hyun's doing. Ju-hyun was inspecting a relic that he found from her. Suddenly, he heard a voice instructing him to leave this place immediately. This place is soon going to fall into chaos. He realized it was that crow's voice. Sungwoo asked why he was talking to the air. He realized that only he could hear its voice. It warned him again to leave this place. Ju-hyun got mad, treating him like a game character, and refused to follow his order. The crow told him that he would regret it. Suddenly, Kwon appeared. He greeted Ju-hyun and his comrades, and Sungwoo felt a heavy energy and could not move. Ju-hyun noticed he was releasing relic aura. He took out his knife and sneaked behind him, holding the knife to his neck. He calmed his relic energy and praised Ju-hyun for his skills in handling the relics. Kwon mentioned that he heard the prophecy that the world would know about the relics, but he still wanted to gather so many relics. By getting rid of the people who know about relics, he could delay the prophecy a bit. Kwon released a strong aura that affected everyone except Ju-hyun. Kwon wondered why his relics didn't work. Ju-hyun showed him a relic that he stole from him earlier. He inspected the relic, and it was a god tier relic. But he couldn't use it because his domination trail was low. Kwon used another relic called the Relic of Conquest. It was a god tier relic that allowed its user to take control of another person's mind and make them obedient. It was a parasitic type relic. Ju-hyun could see which relic it was from his past life. He thought of cutting off his arms and legs to get information, but he also had an armor type relic with him. He was preparing for an attack when suddenly a crow appeared, commanding Kwon to stop using power. Otherwise, he would wake the vicious jackal dog who lay in slumber. After hearing about the jackal dog, Ju-hyun quickly suspected if it was the god of death, Anubis. Kwon, ignoring the crow's warning, released a powerful aura that caused a significant earthquake. Ju-hyun received many messages stating that the deadly Egyptian aura was causing him and his relics damage. The apocalypse was emerging. Ju-hyun realized that what he was witnessing was a great catastrophe, marking the beginning of the chaotic era of relics. It was the tomb of Anubis, the god of death, emerging all over the world. Sungwoo asked Ju-hyun what was going on. He told them that they were inside the tomb and mentioned that they first have to clear the tomb to leave this place. As they were talking, Kwon told them that after dealing with them, he would clear the tomb and claim the relic. He used an aura to control Ju-hyun's mind. But suddenly, they heard a voice. It was a jackal dog who was furious for creating a scene inside his domain. Ju-hyun noticed that there were a total of 3 relics. First was Set, the god of darkness and evil. Second was Anubis, the god of death. And third, the necklace he is wearing is Osiris, the god of the underworld and judge of the dead. Ju-hyun was amazed by seeing 3 god relics in the same place. Osiris inquired what kind of trail they should give them to kill them. Set yelled at Osiris, saying giving them a trial would be too generous. They were disgusted by human presence. Ju-hyun's tolerance was increasing due to being attacked by a strong aura. Set decided to overpower them with his strength. As the Set relic began its attack, the other 2 joined and released a strong, powerful energy. His minoans were bleeding, and even Kwon was affected by their energy. Ju-hyun instructed them that they should leave this place immediately. The relics were discussing why their attack wouldn't affect Ju-hyun. He was using the Hammurabi stone. Set was angry and used a strong aura to attack Ju-hyun, but he reflected the attack on him. Anubis thought using only their aura wouldn't work and suggested using their abilities. Set refused, saying if they used their abilities, their lifespan would decrease. Set noticed the scent of the black crow, which was coming from Ju Hien. Osiris made fun of Set, saying a black crow is sealed, and his nose is gone insane. Set got furious and started fighting with him. Ju Hien pointed out that in the myth of Osiris, Set killed his older brother Osiris due to jealousy. The original story of relics influenced their relationship. Anubis noticed that Ju Hien was plotting something. He decided to put him through his trial. He was falling, then realized he was standing on a weighing scale. Anubis was standing in front of Ju Hien and informed him that he is standing on a scale of judgment, and he will commence his judgment. Ju Hien thought claiming the relic by clearing the trial is easier for him. In his past life, Ju Hien had the chance to meet the owner of the Anubis relic. The relic user explained that Anubis asked a series of questions during the trial, and as long as the answer was yes, one would pass. Ju Hien thought that if a child could easily clear the trial, he could too. The jurors began asking 42 questions, and Anubis informed him that affirming with a yes would lead to passing, while lying would be exposed by the beast hiding in darkness, which would devour him. Anubis started with the first question, asking if it was true that Ju Hien had never committed theft. Ju Hien hesitated as he had a lengthy past. The questions continued, focusing on honesty and being a good person. Ju Hien realized why the child had breezed through the trial. The kid hadn't lived long enough to commit many sins. Ultimately, Ju Hien failed the trial. Anubis seized him and threw him into the beast's mouth, and Ju Hien fell into the sand where numerous beasts awaited him. Finding a bone for defense, he resisted and struggled against the attacking creatures. Amidst the chaos, a voice taunted him for his foolishness. Suddenly, a light appeared, dispelling all the beasts. A crow emerged, claiming it had been a while since they last met. Ju Hien questioned the crow, noting they hadn't met in the current timeline. The crow explained that regardless of the timeline, there was only one of him. More beasts appeared, and the crow revealed that he would be trapped there for eternity, with increasingly more beasts emerging. The crow unleashed a powerful light from within. Outside the trial, Set and Osiris awaited Anubis. Suddenly, a black ball shattered, revealing the power of a sun god. Crow and Ju Hien stood before them, with Anubis unconscious. Set, recognizing the sun god's power, grew furious. Osiris suggested using their abilities and alerting others. Set unleashed a powerful energy, shattering the ground and summoning numerous beasts. Crow informed Ju Hien that he couldn't assist him further. Ju Hien reassured him that he would handle the situation. Drawing his Muramasa blade, Ju Hien leaped into the air, engaging the beasts. The relics observed, skeptical that he could defeat the entire undead army. Anubis regained consciousness, and Set proposed utilizing their abilities to the fullest. Suddenly, long strips wrapped around them, increasing their size. Although one of them attacked Ju Hien, he skillfully dodged the assault and countered with his knife. More beasts were sent toward him as they discussed the appearance of the black crow and the need to alert others. During their conversation, Ju Hien unexpectedly appeared behind them and swiftly defeated Set. In a rapid sequence of moves, he also took down Osiris. Discovering Anubis, he shattered the strips binding him, and Anubis surrendered. Ju Hien instructed him to reopen the judgment of the realm, but Anubis explained that even if he did, Ju Hien wouldn't pass the trial. Undeterred, Ju Hien informed him that if he wanted to stay alive, Anubis would have to change the question. In the end, the Anubis relic had to reopen the judgment of the trial. The scale and jurors reappeared just as before, but Anubis was now much smaller. Ju Hien threatened Anubis to ask questions that he would answer. Eventually, Ju Hien manipulated all 42 questions to receive affirmative responses. A window appeared, confirming that he had completely cleared the tomb. Ju Hien teleported outside of the trial, and numerous messages appeared, indicating that he had obtained a god-type relic. He ordered the closure of the tomb, and it began to collapse. Quan couldn't believe that Ju Hien had cleared the tomb and gained possession of those relics. Witnessing Ju Hien's powers, Quan apologized for his earlier rudeness and extended an offer to work with him. Ju Hien questioned Quan about his previous intent to kill him, to which Quan responded that he didn't know him well but saw great potential in his growth. Quan promised support for whatever Ju Hien needed and suggested joining forces. However, Ju Hien, skeptical of Quan's words, expressed a lack of trust. Quan elaborated on the benefits of their collaboration, but abruptly, Ju Hien sliced his throat. Having grown tired of Kwan's bluffs, Juhyun observed blood scattering but then returning to Kwan's body as the cut began to close up. It dawned on Juhyun that Kwan possessed a god-tier relic known as the Achilles relic. Achilles, a soldier in Greek mythology, was granted near immortality by his mother, who dipped him into the river Styx while holding on to only the back of his heel. Despite receiving immense strength, his heel remained his vulnerable spot, and he met his end when struck by an arrow in that area. Knowing Achilles' story, Juhyun recognized that even legendary figures had weaknesses. Taking out Muramasa, Juhyun explained its ability to become stronger against formidable opponents. Charging at Kwan, Juhyun unleashed a series of powerful strikes. However, his blade eventually broke under the pressure. Kwan's relic of conquest activated on its own, allowing him to reflect some attacks using the Hammurabi stone. Despite Juhyun bombarding him with relentless assaults, the stone of Hammurabi also shattered. Kwan, surviving through the combined power of the relic of conquest and Achilles' relic, Juhyun felt annoyed as he couldn't end his life. After the battle, news spread everywhere. Normal people didn't understand anything because relics were not known to the world yet. Juhyun was in his room, eating noodles and watching the news. He knew that because of this event, everyone would now know about relics. Manhwa asked what these relics were. He told him they are the things lying on the bed. Because of relics, the world would completely change. Those who possess good relics will obtain power. He asked, aren't they on the verge of breaking? Juhyun replied, yeah, but he has a solution. He called Irene and told her that he found a way to remove her curse. In reality, he was just using her to get things done. He needed more time to remove her curse. He told her that she needed to find someone named Uchiha, a specialist in relic restoration. Every relic can be destroyed due to durability wearing down or reckless use of the relic. There is no way to restore a relic that has been destroyed. However, some relics have the power to restore other relics. Those who could use those relics were called restorers of the relics. Jaeha was top class among those restorers and essentially monopolized the market. He was called the Fraud King. He eventually caught the eye of Chairman Kwan. Juhyun and Jaeha were on the same tomb raiding team. If he could get his hands on him, then he wouldn't have to worry about restoration anymore. And Manhwa asked, isn't he the relics specialist? Juhyun replied, he's correct, but restoration is a tricky task. And he don't have a relic affinity. Irene arrived via helicopter. Juhyun and Irene went to a cafe to talk. Juhyun asked her if she knew Jaeha, but she didn't know. Juhyun asked her if she knew anyone who collects art pieces. She replied that her brother collects art pieces and even meets up with people who have the same interest. Juhyun gave her his photo and asked if she knows that person. She immediately replied this was the guy who pulled a fraud on his brother. Irene's brother had bought art from him, which turned out to be fake. Irene explained that he wouldn't be able to find him anymore because he already died. He got caught trying to cheat on his brother's friends. While they were chasing him, his car fell down a cliff after bashing through the guardrail. Even the police said he's dead. Juhyun, confused, wonders how this happened and if the future changed. After thinking, he noticed that not everything is happening the way it did before he died. Juhyun asked her to look for him, as there was no way he would die from that incident. Chairman Kwan lay on the hospital bed, covered in bandages. He was angry and started cursing Juhyun because, thanks to him, everyone is now aware of the relic he had been hiding for so long. Suddenly, Edward came and told Kwan's assistant to stay outside for a bit. Edward said, if he is crazy for summoning a tomb like that. Kwan replied that he didn't know there was a tomb. Edward told him, it doesn't change the fact that he activated the relic, and informed him that because of his actions, his clients were furious. Edward then asked Kwan if he had the relic of immortality, then why his wounds were not healing. Impressed with Juhyun for dealing with the relic of immortality, Edward advised Kwan to restore his damaged relic. Kwan didn't know there was such a method, so Edward told him that he would connect him to a restorer, and he needed to keep collecting relics for him. Edward left, and asked his assistant to find out who Juhyun was. In the following scene, Uchiha was fixing some relics when he received a call from Edward. He promptly answered, and Edward, aware that Jaeha's quick response indicated a need for money, inquired about the situation. Jaeha explained that he got caught trying to pull off fraud and was now pretending to be dead. Edward offered him a restoration task, but Jaeha wasn't initially enthusiastic. When Edward mentioned the client is from TKBM and has a significant amount of money, Jaeha got excited and agreed to take on the job. Juhyun stood in front of an art gallery, entered, and approached the receptionist to inquire about Jaeha. She informed him that Seo Yujiha was not in the office. However, Juhyun sensed relic powers nearby. She mentioned that Seo Yujiha was killed in an accident. Juhyun placed a bag full of relics in front of her. The receptionist was amazed at the number of relics. Juhyun clarified that it didn't have to be Jaeha. He just wanted to fix his relics. He asked if she could handle the restoration. She instructed him to wait for a moment, called Jaeha, and informed him of a request for relic restoration. Jaeha told her to send them back. She mentioned there were many relics and they were seemingly easy to fool. Jaeha instructed her to gather all the relics and come to the restoration room, intending to create a perfect fake relic for extra profit. She hung up the phone and told Juhyun that she would fix his relics, asking him to sign a contract. Sungwoo questioned giving all their relics to her, and Juhyun explained it was bait to test if their plan would succeed. Jaeha got extremely excited after seeing so many relics. His assistant worried about the risk of getting caught. Jaeha started working on the relics, utilizing a relic with a secret signature capable of creating perfect counterfeit copies. By touching the relics with this secret signature relic, one could produce flawless replicas. These counterfeit relics not only mimicked the shape of the originals but also replicated some of their functions. The counterfeit relics were created using Jaeha's own aura, preventing anyone from noticing the difference for 12 hours. Sungwoo became upset upon seeing the 10 million bill for the restoration, but Juhyun assured him that he wouldn't be the one paying. The assistant came and conveyed that the relics were too damaged, and she couldn't fix them. Suddenly, Juhyun threw away the fake relics, revealing that the assistant had swapped his real relics with fake ones. The assistant, frightened, disclosed the location of Juhyun's real relics. Juhyun smashed the door and tied Jaeha with his rope, demanding to know the whereabouts of his relics. Jaeha immediately revealed that all the relics were in the vault. Juhyun opened the lock, leaving Jaeha shocked at how he knew his password. Jaeha used to be a different person, leading a normal life as a skilled artist. He attended a renowned art school in America and developed his own art style through hard work and dedication. However, he lost his art style to his tutor, Richard, who became a world-famous artist with Jaeha's stolen style. Protests were in vain, as Jaeha was not as well known as his tutor at the time. He lost his career, and everyone thought he was just jealous. From then on, he started using his talent for fraudulent activities. That's when the counterfeit relic approached him. Back to the present, Juhyun threatened Jaeha with Shakespeare's pen, emphasizing that anything he wrote would come true. Jaeha, scared, promised not to take any fees from him. Juhyun asked him to make an exclusive contract so that he could let him leave. They made an exclusive contract, though Jaeha remained confused about the one-sided agreement. Juhyun told him to ask his minion about the contract, as they were on the same page. Juhyun assured him that from now on, he would take care of him. Jaeha skeptically questioned if Juhyun had the power and money for that. Not sure if he was lying or not, Jaeha ran away and called Seo Kwan, expressing his situation to make a deal with him. As he was about to make a deal, Juhyun's minion held Jaeha. Juhyun asked for his phone and started talking with Seo Kwan. He immediately recognized his voice and informed him that Jaeha is now his exclusive contract repairman, then abruptly cut the call. Jaeha asked him what was wrong with him. Juhyun warned him that only hell awaits if he follows Seo Kwan and advised him to choose his path carefully. He explained that from now on, Jaeha would be following his path. Jaeha, angry, questioned why he had to work under someone like him. Juhyun introduced himself as the new leader of the excavation team with Jaeha as the new repairman, but it didn't change Jaeha's mood. Juhyun delved into Yujiha's background, revealing that he even copied the study of art, much like the famous artist Jean Richard. This revelation angered Jaeha, prompting him to throw a punch. Juhyun stopped the punch. Jaeha told him that he was the one who copied his style. Juhyun explained that art is not something to be simply copied and pasted, emphasizing that Richard could even copy thoughts. Juhyun disclosed Jean Richard's ability as a relic user, capable of turning into a person of his choice, copying knowledge and abilities perfectly. Jaeha questioned how Juhyun knew this, and he replied that when it comes to relics, he is knowledgeable. Juhyun assured Jaeha that he would regain his art style, and when that happens, he would have to work under him. Jaeha asked for more time to think, and Juhyun gave him his card and a relic for protection, stating that he couldn't risk his future repairman's safety. The next day, he went to see Seo Kwan, presenting a condition for signing the contract. He informed Seo Kwan about Richard stealing his art style and offered to work under him if he exposed Richard. Seo Kwan called Richard and inquired about Jaeha. Juhyun allowed Jaeha to leave because he knew the contract would never happen, and Kwan had connections to Richard. Richard was a crucial member of Pandora, and an old friend of Kwan. Seo Kwan mentioned that he and Richard had a good relationship. Jaeha tried to leave, but Kwan insisted he couldn't leave. His security guard grabbed him and started beating him. He remembered the relic that Juhyun had given him. Suddenly, Juhyun arrived to rescue Jaeha. He enters and deals with the bodyguards. Kwan was angry but couldn't do anything due to his injuries. Juhyun greets him and makes fun of him. Kwan orders his bodyguards to go after him. But Juhyun takes out a pen relic and writes that they would experience immense pain between their legs. In Juhyun's house, Juhyun gives him a job to restore the relics. Jaeha asks where their excavation team is. Juhyun tells him that to convince him, he lied. Jaeha gets mad and refuses to do the work. Juhyun smacks him and tells him to repair the relics in 3 days. Jaeha tells him that's impossible, and his relics are in bad shape, taking at least a month to finish the work. Juhyun catches his lies and asks if he's planning to work only once a week. Jaeha tells him he was not lying and says he can't do it faster than that. Juhyun tells him he has a faster way to repair relics. Jaeha gives him his restoration relic. He observes it. Jaeha tells him that if he fails, he would have to give him a month for each relic. And if he succeeds, he would give up his salary. Juhyun was sure he would succeed. Jaeha was amazed by Juhyun's speed in repairing relics. Juhyun finishes it. In a brief moment, Jaeha asks why does he need him when he can do everything by himself. Juhyun gives him his relic and asks to check its condition. The relic was terrified by his dominance. Juhyun explains that this type of relic needs a high affinity trait to use them. Jaeha notices its durability did go down. Jaeha tells him that even with this new method, he can't work that fast. Juhyun forcefully gets him to work and tells him that the person he invested in is not him but his future self. If he works hard, he will definitely reach there. Jaeha's phone rang. It was Edward. A new window pops up. Juhyun got a skill called Tomb Restoration. He wonders what kind of skill that is. Jaeha comes and tells him that someone he knows keeps asking him to give his phone to Juhyun. Edward greets him, and Juhyun immediately recognizes his voice. According to Juhyun's past life, Edward will become the king of riches in the future, a businessman who had a big hand in the relic market. Edward asks if he can offer him a job. Juhyun tells him to describe the work. Edward tells him that the work itself is pretty valuable information. Juhyun tells him that if he can't know what a job is, how can he accept it? Edward agrees to tell him. He says that the Chinese government has put a bounty on a tomb, but any relics they find will be the property of the Chinese government. The job is for Juhyun to steal those relics. Juhyun asks who gave him the request. Edward tells him that the request came from Kiera Clark. Kiera Clark, a general in the U.S. Army who is in charge of all relics-related matters, people gave her the title King of War. Juhyun remembers her and doesn't want to get involved with her. Although he initially wanted to deny it, Edward informs him that she is collecting map-type relics, and the relic from the Chinese tomb is one such map-type relic. Juhyun recalls that she monopolized all map-type relics in his past life and sees an opportunity to use that relic for himself. Edward asks if he can do the job, and Juhyun confidently states that he is ready for the task. On the plane, Jaeha is freaking out because Juhyun is taking him into a tomb. Irene approaches and asks if he is comfortable. Jaeha wonders who she is. Irene greets him and addresses him as a scammer. Juhyun clarifies that she is Irene Holton. Jaeha, scared, apologizes for scamming them and begs not to report him to her brother. Irene forgives him, but Juhyun gaslights her, suggesting she should not forgive him so easily. Irene tells him that Juhyun is a very important business partner, and that he has to help him. Jaeha agrees. Juhyun tells her that from now on, she has to learn how to control her power with the help of both of them. He mentions that her relic is a parasitic type, which he can't remove. Juhyun instructs her that he uses dominance trait, Jaeha use affinity trait, and she has to learn both. In Macau, China, 2/3 of Macau were turned into a tomb. The bridge was severed, and the only way to enter the tomb was by boat. Juhyun wondered if the relic purposely chose the island and disconnected other routes. Jaeha told him that his restoration relic is missing. Juhyun receives a message stating that a cunning thief is after his relics. He sends his rope relic after them, assuring Jaeha that he will find them. They enter the women's restroom, where a kid was tied with a rope and hanging onto it. Juhyun recalls that the kid is the Medusa relic user who works for the US government. Jaeha closes his eyes, concerned that if he looks at her, he will turn into stone. She uses her powers, but Juhyun binds her hair with rope, stating that to use her relic properly, she has to become a grown woman. Juhyun starts interrogating her, asking how many people are with her. She threatens him that there are a lot of people, and they will come to find her. Juhyun suspects there must be more than 20 people. Jaeha wonders why the entire US excavation team is here, even though they gave this job to Edward. Juhyun tells him that no matter who succeeds, the relic will go to the US. He thinks if Kira is going to this extent, then it must be worth stealing. Jaeha asks about the request. Juhyun tells him he will make a fake for them. Jaeha doesn't like the idea and wants to stay out of it. Juhyun smacks him and reminds him about his contract. He thanks the kid for the information and takes out the Hammurabi stones so she can't snitch on them. He tells her that if she tells them about them, she will face unbearable pain and orders Jaeha to collect all the relics she has. Jaeha reminded him that he still hadn't repaired all the relics yet. Juhyun gets mad and told they have no choice but to go with all that they have, assuring him that it will work out somehow. Jaeha freaks out, seeing how careless he is. In the US excavation team camp, a Medusa kid was getting scolded for losing all her relics. Linda tries to calm him down. She said that she didn't lose them, but someone took them. He asks who was it. As she begins telling Hammurabi Stone's curse activates and starts tickling her, it stops her from saying anything. In the waters outside Taipa Island, Jaeha is whining about their situation. Juhyun asks him to take out the relics that they found from the kid, thinking they might find something useful. As they enter the tomb, suddenly, ships begin shaking, and the sky turns dark. A man comes and tells them to get to work, mentioning that leading ships are getting attacked. A large number of monsters were coming out of the water and attacking fleets. Juhyun remarks that they are not as many as he expected, and their size is also small. Jaeha told him the people who got attacked are possessed. Jaeha was freaking out. Juhyun told him to run. They get inside, and he took out a pen relic. He wrote that those who are being controlled will lick the floor. It worked fine. Suddenly, they hear a voice. It was a relic of the tomb. It was impressed by Juhyun and mentioned that he expected no less from the person chosen by the crow. It told them that rumors about him have spread among all relics. Jaeha asked what he was talking about. Juhyun told him that they are just attention seekers who need attention. The relic gets mad and tells him he won't live for long, as all the relics will come out to destroy him. Juhyun says that if all the relics come to him, it will be easy for him to capture them all. Juhyun asks about the crow. Remembering that Egyptian relics were also talking about him, and he seemed pretty famous among them. The relic refused to tell him anything. Juhyun teased him, saying it is refusing because he can't remember it, and it's not smart enough. It gets mad for insulting him and begins telling. The relic said that the crow was a well-respected god to relic with the power of predation. He could absorb others' power and use them as his own. But after signing a contract with a human, he betrayed all. Many relics were devoured by the crow or turned into slaves for that human. They couldn't stand still. But they couldn't fight him head-on, so they were able to win over a human that he made a contract with. They showed him something better than a crow relic, and he abandoned him. They sealed that crow in a prison and killed the human. Juhyun remembered the tomb that they went to was a prison tomb. He understands why they couldn't escape the tomb. Juhyun thanked him for the information. Juhyun was skeptical about the crow. But now that he heard his story, he seemed like a nice guy to team up with. The relics get furious and send lots of monsters toward them. They resist and struggle against the monsters. Juhyun's knife also shatters. They run from there, and Juhyun orders Jaeha to find a ship they can use to escape. Suddenly, another fleet approaches them, and it's the US excavation team's fleet. One of them asks the Medusa kid if they are the ones who stole their relics. Juhyun wonders if they have more relics. He tells Jaeha to find a boat using the rope, and he will take care of them. The guy from the US team takes out his weapon, and Juhyun notices it's a pretty good weapon. He strikes at him, but Juhyun dodges his attack. His opponent's movements were fast, and Juhyun thinks his relic must be A tier. Juhyun punches him in the face, but it doesn't affect him much. Juhyun runs, and the guy chases him, swinging his blade. Juhyun takes out a silver axe relic. He swings his blade, but he dodges and counters it with his axe. His clothes shred to pieces. As he drops the weapons, Juhyun picks it up and reveals its true form. Jae-ha finds a boat, and Juhyun gets on it. As they go toward the relic, a shot is fired at them from the U.S. excavation team. They chase them with another boat. Juhyun orders his rope to capture Linda and throw her into the water. They manage to escape and reach the place where the relic is. The relic gives him a trial where he has to give a sacrifice to obtain the relic. Juhyun ignores the trial and activates the blade's power. He cuts the tree and gets the map relic. It's the map of Zihen's treasure. Zihen and his fleets sailed all over the Indian Ocean, reaching all the way to Africa and bringing back numerous rare treasures. Juhyun tells Jae-ha to repair it. He damaged it while cutting the tree and says it is going to be useful to them. He closes the tomb and escapes from there. In downtown Macau, Jae-ha was making a fake replica of a relic. He asks Juhyun if he is really going to give them a fake relic, mentioning it's too risky. Jae-ha inquired why they are scamming such powerful people even though they are paying a lot. Irene also suggested that it's a bad idea. Juhyun stated that the reason they are doing this is because they need it to solve Irene's problem. He asked her to put her hand on the relic. Irene placed her hand on it, and Juhyun cast a spell. It started glowing and showed the location of a misfortune-related relic, which happened to be in Turkey. Jae-ha understood the importance of this relic, but he still didn't suggest going against Kiara Clark. Juhyun explained that even if they don't scam her, she would come after them anyway. Kiara collects map-type relics, enabling her to pinpoint tombs and clear them. He mentioned her possession of a Columbus relic map, which shows all tombs and relics in a given area. If she found out about Irene's relic, she would likely come after her. Since Irene's relic is parasitic, Kiara might resort to kidnapping or blackmailing her to use her powers. Juhyun suspected Kiara must have used Irene that way in his past life. Juhyun assured Irene that he would not let anything happen to her. However, his true intentions were to use her powers and the Holton family's wealth. Juhyun explained the plan. First, they would give Kiara a fake relic. When she finds out it's fake, Juhyun will explain things, and she will likely want to meet him in person. When they meet, he plans to destroy all of her map relics. Jae-ha freaks out after hearing the plan, and Juhyun advises him to get to work quickly. The next day, Jae-ha finished making the fake relic and handed it over to Edward, who must have given it to Kiara. While they have some time on their hands, Jae-ha worked on restoring relics while Irene focused on learning how to control her powers. After a while, Edward came, screaming at Juhyun and pointing a gun. Juhyun greeted him, asking why he was in a bad mood. Edward questioned what Juhyun had sold him. Acting confused, Juhyun mentioned he had sold a map relic. Edward claimed it wasn't a real relic. Juhyun calmed him down and asked for the details. Edward explained that the relic disappeared, and now Kiara was after him. Juhyun inquired about how it happened. Edward mentioned that it worked fine, but the bigger problem was that when the relic disappeared, people close to it vanished as well. One of those people happened to be the Prime Minister of the UK. Seeing an opportunity, Juhyun smiled, and Jae-ha asked why. Juhyun explained that Kiara must also be in trouble, making it the perfect opportunity to scam her. He asked Edward to contact Kiara, and he would talk to her directly. Edward hesitated, stating it wasn't the right time to call her. Juhyun insisted, saying he wasn't asking for a lame explanation, but he might help her solve the situation. Edward agreed and ended up calling her. He explained everything and then handed the call over to Juhyun. Juhyun greeted her, and she informed him about the problem with the relic he delivered, holding him accountable. He explained that he retrieved the relic from the tomb and handed it directly to Edward. Expressing sympathy for the situation with the UK Prime Minister, he conveyed his desire to help. Juhyun emphasized his extensive knowledge about relics and the importance of maintaining a good customer relationship for future business. He enticed Kiara with strategic bluffs, stating that if he failed to resolve the issue, it would negatively impact his business. Kiara inquired about how he planned to assist. Juhyun mentioned that Edward had informed him about her map relics and proposed using one of them to locate the Prime Minister. He claimed to unlock hidden powers within the relic to achieve this. While expressing skepticism, Kiara allowed him to use her relics, with the condition that he would come to the designated location without any relic and perform the task in front of them. Juhyun agreed to the terms. He reassured Edward that he would manage everything, advising him not to accompany them. When Jae-ha questioned his role, Joo-hyun asserted that he would be joining him. A window appeared, assigning Joo-hyun new titles. The next day, Joo-hyun arrived at the hotel, where a receptionist inquired about how she could assist them. 2 men approached to escort them to Kiara. They followed the escorts and arrived at Kiara's location, where she greeted them and led them to where the relics were stored. Joo-hyun observed the various maps, including the Columbus map. Kiara instructed him to proceed, cautioning that if he failed his head would be blown up. Joo-hyun requested a pen. She asked why. He assured her that he will avoid any reckless actions to ensure his survival. As he began writing on the relic, a soldier aimed a gun at him, threatening him for writing anything on the relic. Joo-hyun explained that to bring out the hidden power within the relic, he had to do what he was doing. Kiara intervened. She said it better work. When she inquired about what he was writing, Joo-hyun claimed it to be a Toon glyph, the language of the relics. She asked how he was able to read it, and he mentioned having had a chance to learn it. Upon finishing writing and activating a hidden power, Joo-hyun revealed that the concept of relics having hidden powers was absurd, and what he wrote had nothing to do with finding the Prime Minister. He had already discovered the Prime Minister's location using the Jing relic and knew the answer. Joo-hyun informed Kiara that he found the location in the Sahara Desert and provided the exact coordinates. She immediately ordered special ops to be contacted at the nearest location. Pointing a gun at him, she instructed Joo-hyun to share information about the relic language until they found the Prime Minister. Joo-hyun was teaching her the alphabets of the relic language when a soldier arrived, informing them that they found the Prime Minister. Joo-hyun asked if he could leave since they located the Prime Minister. She instructed him to finish what he was doing, stating he couldn't leave until she learned how to utilize the hidden power of relics. Joo-hyun questioned what if he didn't want to stay. Suddenly, a room exploded, and all the map relics were burning. Despite Kiara ordering to protect the relics, agents began tearing them apart. She suspected it might be Joo-hyun's doing as she searched for them, but they had already escaped. Joo-hyun and Jae-ha found themselves in the fountain. Right after the explosion, Joo-hyun had given an escape relic to Jae-ha. In the midst of the confusion, Jae-ha drew the fountain. The relic they used was Kwan's lawyer carrying it, and they used it as an escape relic. Jae-ha asked what kind of method Joo-hyun used. He explained that when he borrowed a pen, he swapped it with Shakespeare's pen, shaping it to look the same. The things he wrote on the map were intended to instill terror. Joo-hyun memorized a few names before hypnotizing them. Then he wrote those names in the relic language. Jenny, the hotel attendant, then bombed the place. 2 agents witnessed evil spirits coming out of the map and tore the maps. Joo-hyun felt relief that now that she doesn't have the map relics, she won't be able to track them. Now they can head over to Turkey. Kiara was talking to Richard. She asked him to repair her relics and told him that they are severely damaged. He informed her that he is already in the middle of restoring some relics for TKBM. She informed him that the guy who smashed TKBM's relics is the same one who set fire to her relics. She felt concerned that he would become more of a problem in the future. Richard agreed but assured her she does not have to worry for long because soon Pandora will be launched. Then normal people won't be able to use or possess the relics. In Turkey, we see Irene buying food and asking the vendor if everything is going right. He was confused, and then she left from there. Joo-hyun and Jae-ha were waiting for her in the car. Irene told him the time she spent practicing is paying off and thanked him for the help. Suddenly, bad things started happening, and Joo-hyun said it's too soon to thank him. They headed to the tomb and noticed that there is still a tomb there, but one side is collapsed. Joo-hyun remarked that since the relic is attached to Irene, it should have disappeared. They also noticed soldiers standing outside, and it was the U.S. Tomb Special Operation Force with the Turkish soldiers. Jae-ha asked how they would be able to enter with that much security. Joo-hyun told him they would have to create a way to enter, mentioning that he is not just an excavator but a tomb raider. Near the tomb, they were in the restroom, and Jae-ha asked why they always make plans in restrooms. Joo-hyun told him it just worked out this way. He took out a relic and told them they are gonna make a hole so they can enter. Jae-ha asked if it's an explosive type relic, and Joo-hyun told him it isn't a bomb but a sweet potato relic that allows one to fart. Jae-ha asked if they were gonna make holes by farting. With the Tomb Raider skill, he can make a hole in the tomb, but he will have to destroy relics as a catalyst. He unleashes his power, and a powerful explosion occurs. Soldiers notice that. Joo-hyun makes the hole which leads to the inside of the tomb. Jae-ha hears noise of the soldier expressing concern. Joo-hyun assures him, saying there should be plenty of places to hide inside the tomb. Their path was blocked, so Juhyun takes out another relic to explode. They reach inside the tomb, and Juhyun looks for the tomb glyphs to gather intel. He reads it, and tells that this tomb is a Hand of Midas relic, and the relic attached to Irene's body is the Hand of Midas. Jaeha asks if he is talking about the king who turns everything he touches into gold and mentions that her problem is misfortune. He reminds him that in that story, the golden hand ended up being the hand of misfortune. In Greek mythology, the god of wine, Dionysus, agreed to grant the king of Midas one wish. Midas asked if everything he touched would turn to gold, and Dionysus granted his wish. Midas, overjoyed at first, soon regretted his wish as everything he touched turned into gold, including food and water, causing him to almost starve to death. After Midas begged Dionysus to take his gift back, Dionysus told him if he bathed in the Pactolus River, his hands would turn normal. Juhyun reads in the tomb glyphs that there is a river in this tomb and suspects it might be able to remove Irene's artifacts. As they were talking, a bullet was fired at them. It was soldiers. They start running, and Jaeha asks how they are able to use guns inside tombs. Juhyun tells him it must be because the tomb is damaged. Juhyun tells them to go ahead, and he will catch up with them after taking care of the soldiers. Kira receives information that a tomb in Turkey requested assistance. A soldier informs her that 2 men and 1 woman broke into the tomb. She suspects it must be Juhyun and Jaeha. In the tomb, Juhyun unleashes his power, and soldiers fire at him. He runs at full speed, dodging bullets. He lures them into a trap room, activating the trap and exploding the surroundings. In the midst of chaos, Juhyun takes down soldiers with his sword. He swiftly eliminates them all. After dealing with soldiers, they reach where the river is. Juhyun asks Irene to take a bath in the river so she can wash away the relic. He checks if there are traps inside the waters and assures her she would be fine. She starts taking a bath, and Juhyun is peeping on her. Jaeha asks what he is doing. He tells him that he's just making sure that she is safe, and they can't let their guard down when handling relics. Irene was washing herself, then suddenly a light appeared from the water, and a voice screamed, "My other half is here." Windows popped up, stating the hidden relics slumbering in the lake awakened. Juhyun rushed towards her and told her to get out of there. She said that she couldn't move her body, and her hands started turning into gold. Juhyun jumped into the water, thinking about why this happened. He remembered a message saying a slumbering relic but wondered if the tomb's relic was already attached to Irene and where this other relic comes from. He grabbed her and tried to take her out of the water, and the relic screamed, asking why he was interfering in taking its brother back. Juhyun noticed his hands were also gold. Irene told him to leave her. Juhyun noticed that the relic was saying, "brother," and suspected that the Midas relic is split into 2, one is the golden hand, and the other is the bankruptcy hand. Juhyun told her to use domination to make the golden hand hers as well. Juhyun and Irene used their dominance, and the ground started shaking. She used her full strength to make the relic surrender to her. She was finally able to make the other relic her own. Her body was going back to normal, and her tattoo was also changing. Juhyun explained that the power of the golden hand would balance out the power of the bankruptcy hand, so it wouldn't be able to run wild again. She thanked him for the help. A soldier informed Kira that they can't get in contact with the soldier who went inside the tomb. She orders him not to send any soldiers into the tomb because she's going to use her relic to destroy the tomb. Inside the tomb, they were leaving when suddenly the tomb started shaking. Juhyun received a message saying a goddess of destruction launched an attack on the tomb, and all the entrances are destroyed. Juhyun suspected it must be Kira's doing. The main reason Kira received the name King of War is that she owned a Sekhmet relic. In Egyptian mythology, Sekhmet was a goddess of destruction sent to punish mankind. This relic can destroy its target no matter how far it is. That's why Kira was collecting map-type relics, because if she knows the location of her target, she can then launch an attack. The tomb was collapsing, but Juhyun used the Hammurabi stone to create a shelter. Jaeha was happy to be alive, but Irene expressed concern that if they stayed there, they would run out of air. Jaeha freaked out, and Juhyun calmed him down, assuring him that they were going to make a hole to escape. Jaeha mentioned they had already blown up many relics on their way in, and asked if Juhyun planned to destroy important ones. Juhyun stated that getting out of there was more important, and they could collect more relics later. Juhyun remembered he acquired a new skill, Restoration Tomb, and suspected it might help them. He started using tomb restoration, creating a path for them. Jae-ha was happy they could leave, and Joo-hyun reminded him of their contract, taking full responsibility for his safety. Jae-ha mentioned there might be a situation where he couldn't protect him, and Joo-hyun assured him that he wouldn't allow his subordinates to die in front of him this time. Soldiers were searching for them, and one reported to his superior that they found a new path inside the tomb leading to a nearby village. The soldier wanted to report the situation to Kiora, but another soldier blocked his path, informing him that she was busy and would convey the message. Inside the room, Richard was confused about who made the video call and saw a baby crying in the bed. A soldier came in and told him that it was General Kiora. She informed him that it was the price of using Sekhmet relics. A goddess of destruction, Sekhmet, also transformed into a goddess of love, Hathor. Richard asks if she used her power and inquires if she took care of Joo-hyun and his team. She informs him that they lost them. Kiora starts crying and babbling. A soldier explains that she is talking about Pandora's progress. He informs them about the inauguration ceremony of Pandora, scheduled for tomorrow. The government announces that relics are a threat to humankind, bringing only chaos to the world. The public is banned from entering tombs, possessing, and selling relics. Anyone breaking the law will be labeled a terrorist and face consequences. And announced that Pandora will protect humanity from relics. After escaping from the tomb, they take Irene's private jet to New York. Originally planning to go to LA where the Tree of Life is. Irene informs her parents about being freed from misfortune. Irene's parents insist that Joo-hyun visits them. Joo-hyun looks for an opportunity to approach the Holtons. When they reach the airport, Joo-hyun senses that a lot of relic power is coming from the airport and suspects enemies waiting for them outside. They are soldiers from Pandora, instructing people to hand over their relics. People were furious and refused to give them up. The soldiers detect a relic use detection artifact and start arresting everyone with relics. A colonel was happy that everything was going smoothly when another soldier approached him, stating they detected an aura of a very strong relic. He orders everyone to go after them. Joo-hyun, Jae-ha, and Irene were entering the airport when suddenly soldiers surrounded them, ordering them to hand over all the relics they had. Joo-hyun recalls that Pandora, claiming to protect humanity from relics, would actually use their organization to divvy up the relics to a select few, monopolizing the market and making the world unfair. According to Joo-hyun's memory, Pandora was created 3 years after the Great Calamity, and he wonders if the timeline has changed again. Joo-hyun tells them to screw off and asks what gives them the right to demand other relics. They point a gun at them, and he signals Irene to use her powers. She complies, and as soldiers are ordered to shoot them, their guns explode. Joo-hyun praises her and tells her to make it a little stronger. Soldiers take relics to attack given by Pandora. Irene uses her power, and Joo-hyun helps her control her powers. They realize the strong aura, and a message appears stating the devastating power of bankruptcy is spread throughout the airport. Irene increases her powers, destroying all the relics from soldiers, who start bleeding, and a large explosion occurs at the airport. After leaving the airport, they head towards the Holton mansion. Joo-hyun thanks her for getting them out of trouble and asks if she's hurt or feeling strange. She says no, and Joo-hyun wonders she spent so much power but isn't feeling its side effects. In return for lending relic power, they torture their master every time they are utilized. Irene used enough power to blow up the airport. Therefore, her relics should have demanded something in return. Suddenly, her body starts glowing, and she can't breathe. Joo-hyun tries to calm her down. Her body stops glowing, and she stops moving. Suddenly, she wakes up and looks at him. She grabs him and starts sniffing. A window pops up, saying after using the Midas relic, the user will not be able to control their inner greed, and a strong desire for things will overpower them. She strongly desired the smell of his body. She comes to her senses and is embarrassed. She apologizes and tells him she doesn't know why she did that. Joo-hyun tells her it was the price for using relics, and her relic made her do that. He was confused about what smell she desired. They reach Holton Mansion. Jae-ha is afraid to face Irene's brother George and wants to stay in the car. Irene tells him that he isn't home, but he senses danger around him. They head for home, and Irene tells him that she was visiting her home after so long because she was afraid something might happen to her family due to misfortune. Irene notices a blue Ferrari, and it's her brother's. Suddenly, a gun is pointed at Jae-ha, and it's George Holton. Irene asks why he is at home. He tells her that he got an urgent message from home, so he rushed home. Jae-ha was begging for his life. George was furious and threatened to kill him. Jaeha asks for help from Juhyun. He tells him that they were the ones who lifted the curse from her sister, and Jaeha was also a part of it. George tells him they didn't take out the relic, instead, they fully infused it into her body. He points his gun at Juhyun for scamming them. Juhyun tells him the relic was already attached to her body, and the parasitic relic cannot be removed. He refuses to believe him and says he will find a specialist who will remove it from her body. He remembered that Irene mentioned that they are religious, and they don't think well of relics. Irene interfered and told him not to be rude with her savior. He calmed down and told her that relics are dangerous, and she will lose her life because of relics. Juhyun asks if something happened, but he ignores the question. Juhyun was sure something had happened. He told them to go home. Juhyun told him his parents were the ones who invited them. He blocks him and tells them to get out of there. He punched him and ran towards their mansion. He was sensing a rotten smell and an unpleasant aura. They barged in through the door and saw that Mrs. Holton was in an unpleasant condition. Jaeha asks if Mr. Holton is also in this condition, and he confirms. Juhyun asks him when it began. He said he didn't know the details because he wasn't home. Jaeha asks what kind of condition it is. George didn't know, but Juhyun said it's a relic syndrome. Juhyun also had it in his past life. He explained that it's an illness caused by exposure to relics for a long period. Especially when people use affinity, the illness spreads fast, destroying the body from the inside, and it has no cure. In Juhyun's previous life, 1/3 of the population died from this disease. While people were dying, there were those who took advantage by selling medicinal relics. Juhyun remembered the pain that caused him. George was in sorrow, but Juhyun told him that he has a medicinal relic. George refused to use relics on them. Juhyun told him it is necessary, and that's the last option. Irene told him that he can trust Juhyun. He agreed. Juhyun told him he can't do it right now. He gets mad, and Jaeha grabs him. He told him he has a relic, but it's not fully activated yet. To activate it, he will need at least a week. Juhyun mentions that it's the later stage of the relic syndrome, and this illness doesn't spread rapidly. Irene told them that when they invited them, they were fine. Juhyun suspects if someone deliberately accelerated it. He suspected that someone used relics that aggravate the disease. He asked George if someone visited them in the last few days. He didn't know but told him they always have guests at home and asks why he is asking that. Juhyun told him that someone did that to his parents on purpose. George asks who would do such a thing. Juhyun told him to find out because he has to activate a medicinal relic. Irene insisted that she will be joining them. George refused to let her go. But she explained that she can help them like she did at the airport. Juhyun agreed and assured George that he will protect her. As they were leaving, Jaeha asks what they are going to do now. Juhyun told that they have to find Tree of Life's partner, and it's called Seabok's relic. At the subway station, Jaeha asks why they are here. Juhyun tells him they are here to meet someone. They notice a homeless man. Juhyun grabs his blanket and removes it. It was Edward. Juhyun greets him, and Edward curses him, blaming him for his condition. Juhyun tells him that he did find the Prime Minister exactly as promised. Edward tells him he destroyed Kira's relics, and she labeled him as Juhyun's spy, taking all his relics, properties, and still looking for him. Juhyun tells him he can take him out of the situation, but in return, he has to give information about Seabok's relic. He denies knowing anything about it. Before Juhyun died, Seo Kwon got Seabok's relic from Edward. He threatened him to report his whereabouts. He agreed and told him that he sold it to Kira. He wonders why she would need a relic that attracts children. He suspects that Edward is not telling him the truth, and because of trust issues, he tries to convince him. Juhyun tells him that he will make him a fortune and get him out of this situation if he helps him. He agrees to listen to him. Juhyun tells him that with Seabok's relic, he can make a very powerful medicinal relic. And with that medicinal relic, they can create an endless supply of medicines, making a considerable amount of money. Juhyun plans to create the pharmaceutical company, offering cheap medication for relic syndrome and making money from other medicines they sell, thus breaking the monopoly over medicines. Edward likes his business proposal and tells them that Seabok's relic is in Ghana, Africa. He tells him there is a tomb there, and none of the special forces are deployed there, but a small force is secretly carrying out a mission. Juhyun thinks if they are doing things secretly, there must be something fishy there. On the plane, George sends some bodyguards for Irene, and Juhyun agrees to bring them around but tells them not to get in their operations. They agree to his condition. In Ghana, they locate Kira's soldiers. They were outside a gambling house, and Juhyun suggests going there and taking their relics. He instructs Irene and her bodyguard to stay outside and help him from outside. He enters the gambling house and notices soldiers gambling. Juhyun approaches them and asks if he could play with them. She says that she has never seen him around before and asks if he is ready to lose money. Juhyun was confident, and they started gambling. Juhyun notices a relic hidden under the dish, which manipulates the cards so they can have perfect cards. But Juhyun has misfortune with him. Juhyun was winning rounds one after another. She cannot believe it. Juhyun mocks her, saying despite having a relic that boosts her luck she loses. She gets caught, and Juhyun takes her relic, stating that it's a low-level relic, and they were pouring SS rank misfortune. Outside, Irene is using her power on everyone except Juhyun. Juhyun demands a fine for cheating, which is $1 million for each of them. Juhyun gives them another option to give him a Sia box relic and tell Kira's plan. She refuses to give him anything. Suddenly, everyone in the gambling house is facing serious pain due to misfortune. Outside, Irene loses control over her relic. The soldier agrees to tell him that in the North Forest, there is a tomb, and Kira is cultivating something in there. Jaeha asks what they are doing in there. She tells him she doesn't know because only children can enter that tomb. And that's why she placed Siabok's relic there. He thanks her for the information and takes out zombie powder. Juhyun gets a new title for abusing relics and its users. He looks for Irene. Suddenly, her bodyguards approach Juhyun and tell him that she suddenly ran off somewhere. They spread out to look for her. He concentrates on sensing Irene's relic's aura and comes across the motel. He asks the receptionist if the blonde girls came here. She tells him that a blonde woman came in all frantic and demanded a room and lots of alcohol. Juhyun enters the room and sees Irene sleeping. He wonders if she desired alcohol this time. Juhyun wakes her up, and she was so happy to see him and grabs him. She kisses him and falls asleep. A message appears stating she desired his lips. Kira asks her soldiers for info about Juhyun and his team. A soldier informs her that they traveled from Turkey to New York, then to Ghana, and they are using Holton's private jet to travel. Kira wonders if the woman in Turkey was Irene Holton and if she's part of their group. The soldier informs her that the team in Ghana began to experience psychosis and is arrested by local police. Kira knew it was their doing. She wonders why they would go there. Soldiers ask if she's attacking with her powers again. She says no and orders to collect information about his connection with Holton's family. Juhyun and others reach the tomb. He gets a message saying this tomb only allows children to enter, and the tomb is already cleared. Juhyun wonders if she took the relic, why didn't she desecrate the tomb? Juhyun asks for some low-level relic to blow up. It blows up and makes a hole. Juhyun takes the jeep into the hole, and they reach inside, but everyone was in a miserable state because of the steep road. A window pops up stating the tomb is cleared, so human objects can work. He checks the phone, and it was true. Jaeha is in shock seeing children working in the field of tea. Jaeha asks if they are hypnotized because they didn't even notice the sound they made coming in. Juhyun gets a message stating they are controlled by Siabok's relic and harvesting tea leaves. Juhyun tells them that this tomb is Shinong's tomb, a miniature of half ox and half human who was the first to cultivate tea. Juhyun understands that the tomb was created by Shinong's relic, and Kira found this tea field, thinking it wouldn't be beneficial if they destroyed the field. So, she decided to keep the tomb open and harvest medicinal tea leaves. There is a condition in this tomb that only children can enter, so she used Siabok's relic to lure them and force them to work for her. They split up to find the relic, and suddenly, kids started attacking Jaeha. The children glare at Juhyun, but he glares back, scaring them. He takes out rope relics to capture them, and more of them come to attack. A voice asks who is interfering with their work. It was a Siabok's relic. Juhyun rushes towards the voice and orders his rope to capture the children. He finds an earthworm, which is a Siabok's relic, and steps on it. Juhyun knows of his love for money and asks for his price. It was happy that he knows about him and tells him he is pretty expensive. Jaeha asks why he is negotiating with a relic. Juhyun tells him it's the best way to handle it, explaining that it demands lots of money whenever it is utilized, and that's why he loaded the truck with money that he got from the gambling house. Juhyun gives him $2 million in cash, but he wasn't satisfied and demands more. Juhyun takes out another bag and offers it to him. Juhyun asks if he feels like working for him. He counts and tells him that his current owner is paying him more than this. He wonders how much money Kira is paying him. After negotiating with it, in the end, giving him all of his cash wasn't enough, but he gives all his accessories, jewelries, and even receives some help from Irene, adding some land deeds. The relic was excited to obey his new master. Juhyun captures him in a bottle and orders him to lift the hypnosis from the kids. He gathers all the kids and asks the relic to show the way out of there. It demands more money as a wage. Juhyun promises to add more money and hands it over to Jaeha. Jaeha asks where he is going. He tells him that he is going to take care of the other Shenong's relic and asks him to pass the bag. Suddenly, a tomb relic, Shenong's, reveals itself and gets furious, screaming, asking where they are going, abandoning the field. Juhyun finds his location. Jaeha throws the bag at Juhyun, but a barrier prevents the bag from reaching him. It was a wall of aura, and Juhyun decides to fight with all he has. The angered relic manipulated the roots and captured Juhyun's foot, but he cut down the roots and freed himself. He noticed a relic hidden between tea plants and decided to close the distance. However, he observed poison spreading through the air. Juhyun had an idea. He took out a relic and set fire to the place. Chaos ensued as fire scattered across, burning the tea plants. In the midst of the chaos, he rushed at the relic, closing the distance. As he was about to strike, the ground collapsed, creating a huge hole. Juhyun fell, and the relic captured his legs, dragging him along. The tomb collapsed, blocking the way out. Jaeha was worried that Juhyun might die and wanted to help, but the bodyguard informed them they couldn't assist due to the barrier and suggested escaping. Jaeha thought about it and agreed to escape first with the children. Inside the hole, the relic mocked him, claiming he was trapped and going to die due to poisonous air. Juhyun remembered Shenong's relic's nature and thought it must be a god-tier relic, knowing dominance wouldn't work. He put away his sword and approached the relic. Relic mocked and asked if he surrendered. He took out an explosive relic and used it to blast the place. Outside, the tomb exploded, and a large rock fell on the ground. From the midst of the dust, Juhyun emerged. Jaeha and Irene were shocked to see him, and Juhyun told them that he was the one who closed the tomb. He handed Jaeha Shenong's relic and the other relics that he used to restore. In Los Angeles, Songwoo and his group were taking care of a sapling tree. Suddenly, Juhyun called them and ordered them to bring everything to New York. He instructed others to pack up. Upon reaching New York, Jaeha woke Juhyun. Irene approached them, expressing concern that she couldn't get in contact with her driver. Juhyun suggested taking a taxi. They hailed a taxi, and Songwoo called him, informing that they were headed to the meeting place. However, some American guys were chasing them, suspecting they might be after the sapling trees. Juhyun thought it might be Kira's doing. He tried to summon the tree to him, but it failed because it was rebelling against his dominance. He instructed them to meet at a new place and ordered them to protect the tree at all costs. The driver mentioned they were stuck in a long traffic jam. Irene worried about Juhyun's colleagues, fearing they wouldn't be able to save her parents. Suddenly, a car exploded, and Jaeha suspected it might be Irene's misfortune. Juhyun tried to calm her down, assuring her that he would save her parents. He took out his relic obtained from Kwan. Meanwhile, Songwoo and his group were hiding from the people chasing them. Suddenly, a cop spotted them, and they ran, pushing him away. Suddenly people chasing them came from the front. They were trapped from both sides, the people chasing them closed in, and suddenly, they all disappeared. Juhyun had saved them. They handed him a sapling tree, and Juhyun was excited to finally awaken the full potential of the relic. Juhyun took the tree out of the pot, and moved it to a bigger pot with Seoboki's relic. It was excited to meet the tree of life. Juhyun used some dominance to fuse them together, and it grew fruits. He explained that if someone drinks juice from the fruit, they will be healed and will be able to cure her parents. Irene was happy. Upon reaching Holton Mansion, they noticed that the security of the Holton family was lying on the ground, and the house was messed up from the outside. They went inside and saw George lying on the floor with blood. Juhyun asked what happened, and George told them it was a surprise attack, and they even captured his parents inside a painting. Juhyun noticed his injuries were pretty bad. He asked Jaeha to look for their parents. The phone rang, and it was Kira. She told Irene that her brother got injured due to his recklessness, but her parents were still alive. She threatened that if Irene didn't swear loyalty to them, she would kill them, and would not wait long for the reply. Jaeha came and told them that their room was empty. Irene collapsed, but Juhyun calmed her down. He picked up a few fruits from the tree of life and gave them to George. He refused, but Juhyun put the fruit in his mouth. His wounds began disappearing, and Juhyun assured them that their parents were fine. George told him he saw them being taken away. He told him they were their doppelgangers. Before leaving for Ghana, Jaeha made doppelgangers and switched them. George was furious for nursing fake parents, but Juhyun told him that because of him, his parents were safe. Irene asked what made him think to do that. In his previous life, the god of bankruptcy was a totally different person. So Juhyun thought maybe someone had exploited her weakness to act that way. Her parents were her weakness, so he thought of protecting them first. He told Irene that he was just well prepared. George told him he should have told him. He explained that to fool the enemies, you must first fool your allies. They were heading to where Irene's real parents were. George asked how they were going to deal with Kira. Juhyun told him he had already figured it out. He called Edward and told him to tell all the reporters to post their stories. Jaeha asked what he was planning. Juhyun turned on the radio, and a breaking news broadcasted a series of missing children in Ghana, with U.S. Lieutenant General Kira Clark identified as the culprit. Children were forced into labor and hypnotized by a relic. When Juhyun found out he could use the phone inside the tomb, he took a video of the children working in the field and sent it to Edward, who used his media connections to write articles on her. It was all over the internet, and Ghana's president said he would leave Pandora. Civil rights groups issued protests, and the U.S. State Department also distanced itself from her. Juhyun received a message that a suspicious painting was threatening him. He told everyone to get out of the car. Suddenly, their car turned into paint and disappeared into a painting. They were Kira's soldiers. Kira showed up and was angry about the stories published against her. Juhyun mocked the soon-to-be ex-general, saying she would lose everything. She declared that something like this would never collapse her. She demanded the Tree of Life, Irene Holton, and a correction from the reporters, threatening to kill Mr. and Mrs. Holton in front of them. Juhyun told her to do it. She ordered soldiers to bring out the Holtons, but they couldn't be found. She grew furious and ordered to suck them all into the painting. Their bodies were turning into paint, but Irene summoned a barrier to protect them. Juhyun told George to come with them to save his parents. George asked if they were going to leave her sister alone. Juhyun told him he is worrying about the wrong person. Irene was angered, but Kiara reminded her who she's dealing with. Kira summoned a giant, powerful arrow and shot it at Irene, blowing up the surroundings. One of Kira's soldiers asked if they didn't want her alive. Kira replied that now they didn't have hostages, so she had to resort to force. As the smoke cleared from the field, they saw Irene unharmed. Irene said now it was her turn. Meanwhile, Juhyun was with Irene's brother. His brother was worried about Irene. Juhyun assured him that she was fine, but even if she was in a dangerous situation, what could they do if they couldn't use relics? They arrived at the house. Irene's brother saw their parents lying on the bed. Juhyun asked his minion to harvest more berries from the elixir plant. He was originally planning on creating medicine, but there was no time for that now. Juhyun made their parents drink berry juice. They immediately started to come to their senses. Juhyun asked Irene's brother if he would be heading towards Irene now. Irene's brother thanked him for helping, but Juhyun replied that it was too early to thank him. Juhyun worried that even if Irene was strong, Kira was a formidable opponent. Even Juhyun had a hard time getting rid of her in his past life. Suddenly, a window popped up showing the relic of bankruptcy and the relic of war in the vicinity. Jaeha saw a field with everything destroyed. A person was coming out of the smoke. They saw Irene emerging from the smoke. Irene said Kira suddenly disappeared in the middle of the battle. Juhyun was confused. He knew she wasn't the type to run away so easily. Even the message telling him she's somewhere here. Kira had a relic of Sekhmet, the goddess of destruction of Egyptian mythology. But another aspect of this goddess was the goddess of love, Hathor. In this regard, this relic had a risk of transformation. He suspected Kira must be somewhere there, and she may have transformed into something. Juhyun thought maybe they would be able to overpower her, and began searching for her. Kira had been turned into a larva because she used too much of her power. Jaeha found the relic and showed it to Juhyun, but Juhyun took pieces of that relic and placed them on the notebook. After placing them, They immediately found her. Juhyun mocked her for her state. Juhyun picked her up. Jaeha told him it was just a larva. Juhyun told him it was Kiara. He told Irene that her parents were now all cured. She was happy to hear that and thanked him. After the battle was over, Jaeha was making a fake Van Gogh painting. He told him he would need it and asked to put the original relic's power into it as much as possible. They reached an empty mansion and entered inside. Juhyun told Jaeha to find a room to get to work. He took out Kiara and put her inside alcohol. He shook the bottle to torture her. A window appeared, stating the goddess of war's powers were weakening and losing consciousness. In Egyptian mythology, humans rebelled against the sun god. In retaliation, he sent Sekhmet. Sekhmet was so cruel that soon, humans were on the verge of extinction. So the sun god added red dye to beer and poured it all over the earth. Thinking the beer was human blood, Sekhmet drank it all and passed out. Then Sekhmet transformed into Hathor. So Sekhmet's relic's weakness is alcohol. Jaeha finished forging a copy of the relic. Suddenly, they heard a voice. Jaeha was scared. Juhyun told him it was Kiara's soldiers, and they had surrounded them. He told him he purposely lured them here by leaving clues. Juhyun used her as bait in order to get her subordinates as well. Soldiers entered and pointed a gun at them. He threw a bottle at them. It fell on the ground, and they noticed the larva and stepped on it. Unbeknownst to them, it was Kiara. A message appeared. Due to being stopped by her own men, her powers have decreased. He used Van Gogh's relic to suck them in. Kiara returned to her normal form and was furious. She ordered them to find the black dot to escape. They were looking for it. Juhyun told Jaeha to paint something bizarre. A monster appeared and was chasing them. Kiara reached near the black dot, but it disappeared. Juhyun told her he messed up with the relic and there was no way out. After some interrogation, in the end, they gave him a USB with intel on the US military and begged to spare their lives. After getting all the information, Juhyun told them if he left them alive, it would make things difficult for him in the future and decided to burn the painting. And that was the end of the King of War.